and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. I'm Devin.
I'm Dan.
And today, we're talking Today, my brain short-circuited.
Yeah.
Reboot. Today, we're talking about some happenings in the Dungeons and Dragons world that I know nothing about, and Dan knows everything about. So take it away, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, as the title also revealed, that it's about some D&D, drama essentially that's happened. And the reason I kind of wanted to do this was I don't think I'm going to come in here with anything like, hot takes or anything too insightful, but I just wanted to kind of talk a bit about it because as someone who's played D&D since I was a kid and someone you've played D&D a lot as well, I just thought there was a perspective and there were some ideas that weren't being talked about in the discourse that I just kind of wanted to throw out there. But basically what happened, to tell people who may not know, like yourself, is that in mid-December, Wizards of the Coast announced, / Hasbro, who owns Wizards of the Coast, that they were going to make a change to the open gaming license for D&D 1.0. And this license has existed since the year 2000, I think it is, when they released the D&D 3rd edition.
Okay.
So it's 23 years old, this license, right? They announced that, and then about a week ago, there was a leaked draft of the license, which I've seen some look-throughs of it and stuff. And it's like, it's filled with like actual legalese. Like it's probably close to a final draft, right? Like they paid lawyers to write this thing, right?
Okay, can I pause you just for 1 second?
Sure.
Does that mean like people won't be able to play D&D on podcasts anymore?
No, so well, that's what I was going to get to essentially.
Okay,
but that was the initial reaction essentially.
Okay.
No, but yeah, so under the OGL 1, people playing D&D on podcasts like we did, and people writing, adventures and then doing them on Patreon and stuff like that. That was all like allowed under this licensing, right? And it's really old, so yes, it needs an update. And again, like I've said, I've seen some breakdowns in like the legalese, and even some of the legalese from the old license needed to be kind of like cleaned up for the new one, where it's like clearer now what the heck they're talking about, right? Like I said, there was some stuff in there that people were misunderstanding, and it kind of blew up on the internet, and everybody freaked the hell out, right?
Okay, I missed all of this.
No, that's hilarious that you did, because it's like all I've seen for so much. But yeah, people basically being like, "Oh, I won't be able to do my podcast anymore. I won't be able to do this, or Kickstarters won't be allowed. All this other stuff, kind of thing." And there's definitely one thing in there that is gross, and I think that thing should be not in there, or it's probably not even legally enforceable. But basically, one of the things that's interesting is that, like I said, this thing is 23 years old. When 3rd edition of D&D came out, like Netflix wasn't a thing, crypto wasn't a thing, fascists and Nazis weren't as on the rise as they are now. So the new license includes like carve-outs and language to protect D&D and Wizards of the Coast from that kind of thing.
From crypto, Netflix, and Nazis?
Well, yeah. It's, it's more just clear that it's like if you want to use it in your show, aka Stranger Things or whatever, it's like, which I'm sure Netflix did. Like, you got to contact us and we'll work out a deal, whatever, right?
Oh, okay.
And and same thing with like crypto, because again, this goes back. You watched Dan Olson's video on that about how people were just minting shit into NFTs without any permission.
Yeah.
So they were like, no, you can't do that. Right?
Fair. Okay.
Yeah. And the carve out for gross stuff that they want to prevent is basically that languaging, essentially, that it's like if you create something that they disagree with, goes against like the values and spirits of the company / D&D, they'll shut you down. They'll null your license and be like, you're not part of a D&D product. Like, you could still create your whatever it is, but you can't use D&D mechanics and backbone OGL parts to do it anymore, right?
But what okay.
Does that make sense?
That's very vague. No? Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I vaguely remember like earlier last year didn't the CEO come out and say something ridiculous like there would never be any non-binary characters in D&D or something?
I don't know about that. I know recently they came out and were like, they're changing the word race to like species, I think it is, or something like that. Because they're like,
that's probably a good change, yeah.
Yeah, so like they've been doing stuff like that, right? And so like I can find the actual language if you want.
I like where I remember TikTok outrage about him saying something like that, but now I don't know. But like it might have just been something that was misinterpreted because that's what people like to do on TikTok.
Sure, you could 100% be correct because as you know, I'm not on those platforms, so I don't know about any.
Or I thought he said something because one of the D&D podcasts I listened to made a statement about it being like, this is an imaginary world and you can be whatever you want despite what that asshole says.
Right. Yeah, and again, like, because there's obviously a disconnect between Hasbro executives and people who write D&D products and people who play D&D products, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah.
So like I could definitely see that kind of thing happening because like there's been some commentary, and again, maybe unsubstantiated, maybe not, but it's like, like people are in the way of their success of like these products essentially. It's like, but we're your customers. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is here, right? So the new agreement, like the new 1.1 has a paragraph about termination, right? There's some legalese part, but this comes from the comment section where they kind of explain the legalese, and it says, okay, I don't know if you care, but I can read this out here, but it says, we know this may come off as strong, but this is important. If you attempt to use the OGL as a basis to release blatantly racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, bigoted, or otherwise discriminatory content or anything we think triggers these provisions, your content is no longer licensed, period. To be clear, we want to and will always support creators who are using the OGL to help them explore sensitive subjects in a positive manner. But we will not tolerate materials we consider to be in any way counter to the spirit of D&D. So that's right from the new language.
Oh, okay. Do straight people... No, you're straight. I was going to say, do straight people even play D&D?
I mean, I think so.
At least one does.
Yeah. No, but so again, yeah, this is because there was a case not too long ago that, do you remember the game Star Frontiers? I have copies of them. And it was basically like science fiction D&D that they created age ago. Like this was under TSR, right? Like a long time ago. Mm-hmm. They haven't released any products under that in a long time. And somebody was trying to create a Star Frontiers game. Because if you don't do something with like your licenses every so often, like other people can just do something and you like essentially lose it. And the people who were writing it were essentially neo-Nazis. Because they were basically making humans the superior race and, white humans particularly, right? And stuff like that. So WotC had to shut them down. And so that's basically what this languaging is, right? Yes, it's very weird because it's like it kind of just gives them the ability to like shut something down. But again, there's this language there that it's like, if you're making a D&D thing, they're not just going to shut you down, right?
Okay.
But basically what also some of the outrage was coming from is that if you are, because what happened was when the 4th edition of D&D came out, many people didn't like it, myself included, right?
And that was like the video game one.
Yeah, it was very video gamey and very much dependent on like miniatures and grids. And, there was a lot of stuff in there I didn't like. There's a lot of stuff I did like, but there was a lot I didn't. And many people didn't. And this is what created Pathfinder. Because
Pathfinder's great.
Yeah, Paizo, who makes Pathfinder, basically took 3.5 rules, modified them, published them because it was all allowed under the OGL. And they ended up becoming the biggest D&D product for like years. And so
D&D doesn't want to miss out on that money.
Well, there's that, and they also don't want to help create their own competitor anymore, right? So basically,
Yeah, fair.
yeah. So like there's language in the license that it's like if you create something and you start making more than $750,000 a year doing it, you're gonna have to pay royalties to WotC about it, right? But
Okay.
they also do specify in the language like you can make a deal with Wizards of the Coast, right? So it's like because this is for non-commercial, this is just like people. So it's like if you make a company or you do something and you want to actually like license it from them, like the people making the movie, you go to them and you're like you negotiate, right? So
Mhm.
it's like that's a different thing than what this is all about. But basically, it's like that kind of thing. If you make a Kickstarter of something and it's like insanely popular, you may have to pay some royalty fees to WotC about it, right?
Okay.
Um, but essentially, what they've even said in there, and that this doesn't even kick in until 2025. So it's like to give people time to figure out their businesses, to contact Wizards if they have to. It only affects like 20 people in the world right now.
I have a question.
Sure.
What if if you're not making a product, but you're like, what if you have a D&D podcast that is insanely
Popular.
successful? Yeah, and
Yeah.
popular and successful, and you make over $700,000 in ad revenue or sponsorships.
So I don't know about particularly that, but they do have a lot of carve out language for people who create content, podcasts, adventures, or whatever, and then use systems like Patreon or donations to receive money. All of it's yours.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like you can do that. And
That's
again,
pretty generous of them. That's pretty good.
yeah, you might have to like again if it's super successful, you might have to fill out like a form with WotC, just telling them who you are, and
Right.
like because there's some languaging in here. It's like if you make more than $50,000 from products, then you might have to then again just register with them just to be like, hey, we're doing this thing. It's our show or whatever, right? So like again, there's some carve out language, but like the particularly like you're saying like anything from donations or anything as long as you're not charging for the item itself, which then would be a commercial license, you are free to do whatever the heck you want with donations.
What about like, okay, let's say that you're what's that guy Matt Mercer's podcast called?
Like the
Super
Critical Role
successful.
or whatever.
So let's say you're Critical Role
Yeah.
and you make a butt ton of money
Yeah.
from existing. And then you sell merch based on a character, which
So
and you
sorry.
make over $700,000 a year on this specific character merch.
Yeah.
Would that be applicable?
Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Dan,
And
you work with lawyers. That's the same thing.
yeah, no, but the point is that like yes, there may be some kind of thing there, but it's also like when you create something, you do own it. But this goes into later what I was going to say. The part that should be taken out is kind of dabbling into that territory, like you're talking about, where it's like if you create something, you also kind of like reciprocally license it to the WotC to use it in their own way, which that's not good, right?
Oh, so if you created like a character named Mr. Skullface and it's
Yeah.
super popular and everybody wants Mr. Skullface t-shirts, then Wizards of the
Yes.
Coast could make what
Could
Mr.
make
Skullface
those.
t-shirts. Even though, what if you, okay, we're going to get into the minutia here. What if you homebrew a species and class?
Yeah, no, that's exactly falls under that exact same thing where it's again they could take it and then publish it in an adventure that they've made, and you're like, whoa, I made that. And again, that's the part people should be mad about, where a lot of people weren't.
Yeah.
And so like that's the part. Again, that's the part that's probably most likely not even enforceable. I've seen like a couple of lawyer breakdowns, and they're like, dude, this languaging is so like asymmetrical that it's not going to fly, right? So yeah, so that's the kind of the part where it's like that part, yes, be mad about that. It's dumb. Again, I got it here. I was going to bring it up because it's like that's really bad languaging. Like here it is. Yeah, they call it Non-commercial agreement, paragraph 12. This is the commercial one. It reads, okay, other products. Sometimes great minds think alike. We can't and won't cancel products out of fear that they will be viewed as similar to licensed works. Therefore, A, nothing prohibits us from developing, distributing, selling, or promoting something that is substantially similar to a licensed work. And B, you own the new and original content you create. You agree to give us non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide sublicense, royalty-free license to use that content for any purpose. So that's exactly like you were talking about. It's like that you create Skullface and then it gets popular and you're selling a t-shirt and Watsy's like, no, we're selling a t-shirt.
And then they can be like, no, this is the official D&D branded Mr. Skullface.
Exactly, right. So like I said, that part, that's from like the commercial part of the OGL there. That part's bad.
That's real bad.
Yeah, that part's really bad. But what I didn't realize, and again, this was go back to what I was talking about before, but it was like, if you want to license something, like I didn't realize, like if I want to write an adventure and set it in my own D&D universe and, put it up for Patreon, totally legit. But if I wanted to put it in like Faerun or like the Forgotten Realms, that I wouldn't be allowed to do because that's actually technically trademarked by or copyrighted by WotC. Like they own like Umber Hulks and like Displacer Beast Beholders and like Mind Flayers and stuff that you would not think that was like created by them. I couldn't use those monsters unless I like asked them to, essentially.
Oh wow.
Again, kind of weird. But that was all neither here nor there. That was kind of just like an overview of what the kind of the outrage was about and like how the licensing thing has changed. Like I said, most of the languaging is clearing up the language, updating it for 2023 and new technology, and just making sure that people, because again, it was one of those things where it's like the languaging was so bad that it's like if I created a module and then I got sued because of the content or somebody hurt themselves trying something because I was like, it's a LARP, and then, somebody hurt themselves or something like that, they could also sue Wizards of the Coast because it's like I created it using their product. So so that, they have language in there to protect themselves from that because they're like, you can't sue us because you did something using someone else's module or whatever, right? And they also, yeah, one of the things that people were kind of getting all up in arms about is how like the OGL 1.0, once the new one is introduced, will become like, I forget the word is that everyone was up in the arms about, but it's like becomes not null and void, but basically becomes, not the license anymore, right? And so people were like, well, it's going to mean it invalidates everything you've made and everything. It's like, no, it doesn't. That language is in like all contracts because it's like if we have a contract, you sell me something for $10, and then you're like, hey, there's a new contract now. It's got to be $20 because of inflation. But I'm like, well, I can still use the old contract though. So it's like, no, like
that makes sense.
The old contract no longer the contract. You make the new one the contract. There is the bad stuff in there, which that languaging is gross and should be taken out because it's like, yeah, you don't want people, they can't just steal your thing if you made it, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's an interesting thing because not many companies even do this. Star Wars is also pretty notable for it. Like at least they used to be, where you could use stormtroopers and sound effects and stuff like that in your fan created works as long as you weren't selling it, right? Like you could maybe ask for donations and Patreon and whatever. And they'd be cool with it, but until you tried to sell it, then you were fine, right? So
it's kind of interesting because like there's been this huge like renaissance and like new interest in D&D because of all these like people making content about D&D, like Critical Role and Dimension 20 and Dungeons and Daddies or whatever it's called. Those are all like, those make people want to play the game and buy the products.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird to kind of be like, yeah, the stuff that you created that has been free advertising for us, we can now also sell.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, that's the gross part. And like I was saying, we've played sessions of D&D on our show, which I want to do more. They're always fun. And totally able to do that. And this kind of leads into what I was going to talk about, is that D&D has a large like cultural footprint. Like everyone knows D&D essentially. Well, not everybody. Many people do, let's just say. But especially now, right? It's far more popular than even it was 20 years ago when 3rd edition came out, right?
Oh, totally.
but I don't think D&D has a large like money pool out there. You know what I mean? Like it's not a large market in that way. And this
I
kind
don't
of,
know. You got to buy a lot of fucking books.
but here's where I'm going with this is that there's two different things going on here, right? Is that yes, you got to buy some books, but you don't, because the only person who actually has to own the books is the DM.
I guess so, yeah.
Like as a player, you don't have to own anything except for maybe a player's handbook, and even then you don't. Like it's helpful, right? And the only person who should like, or not should, but you know, yeah, again, you might want to buy a monster manual because it's cool to read through or to flip through or this or that. Like every adventure that WotC has put out, especially I've seen where it's like you read through and it's like, if you're the player, stop reading at this point. And I'm like, why would the player even be buying this?
Yeah, good point.
You're not making any sense here. So I think their market is smaller than they realize for products in mainly, again, I'm talking about like PDFs and books, right? That market isn't very big. But I know that they've been pushing hard on like D&D D&D Beyond subscriptions, right? And
yeah.
That is an interesting thing because D&D Beyond was actually created because of the OGL 1.0 license. Like another people, they made it, and then eventually Wizards of the Coast bought it, right?
Yeah, it does feel a bit like they're just shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh no! So again, they're not shooting themselves in the foot. That's what the outrage is about.
Yeah. No, sorry. It feels like I can understand why they're doing it, and it makes sense, especially when it comes to like the NFT stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, and I guess maybe if people are putting content in the world, they don't like on a moral ground, they don't want it to be like racist or homophobic or transphobic or whatever. Which again, that's cool, good choice.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, it just seems like they've really benefited from people like having that original license.
Yeah, well, and no, like I said, the 1.1 license isn't going to stop what people are doing now to continue to move forward, right? There's just been this really bad, I think because it was just like it leaked. So there was no like good communication about like, here's what we're going to do, right? Like they said back in December that they were going to change it. So it wasn't like a shock that, I mean, it shouldn't have been a shock that they were changing it. But you're not wrong. Like I totally agree. And this was going to lead to my other point is that like the reason this has gotten so big and now has become an issue, like again with Paizo making Pathfinder, Critical Role, and like other people and some of these people who make adventures. Like I've bought an adventure book off of Kickstarter off of a guy. I'm still waiting to get it. But anyway, the point of the story being is that like if Wizards of the Coast was making quality modules and source books, people would be buying them. But
yeah,
every single one that I've purchased for the 5th edition, I don't like. I don't like the way they're written. I don't like the way they're put together. Like in a book format, it's just annoying. Like the adventures aren't very clever. They're not even like good reprints of old adventures. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Right? Like,
I'm just going to interrupt you really quick since we're talking about books. It's off topic.
Okay.
But I really do think that Wizards of the Coast should make a player's handbook for absolute beginners. No, but like when you read through the player's handbook, it's confusing on how to make a character sheet, like how to do it. If you don't have 20, 30 years of D&D practice, they need to go like from the top of the page to the bottom of the page being like, player name, that's you. Character name, that's the name of your character. They need something that is that basic so that it can be more accessible to more people.
Yeah, kind of almost taking a page out of like well-written board game rules have the same kind of thing where it's like there'll be the image of like the setup and it's like this component's this component's that, this component's that. And you're like, okay, I get it.
Totally. Yeah, they need something that like if you have never ever looked, like you only know D&D from TV, that like you could pick it up and make a character in an hour.
I think they do with the beginner box or like the starter box, I think is similar to that, but you are correct.
No, we have the starter box and they still don't break it down like just section by section. Be like, these are like, I watched a bunch of like the Critical Role guy, Matt Mercer, did a bunch of videos that does that. And like that's what I watch to like get a better understanding on how to do it.
Right, I think you're telling me about that.
Yeah, and like that's what they need. They need something that's like, these are your stats. This is what I mean by when I say stats. This is what this one does specifically. Like, this is
kind
where
of almost
your
like
points are going to come from.
Yeah, like a nice, like a quick summary at the beginning before it gets into the, here's the races, here's the stats, here's the classes, and etc.
Yeah, just like, even if it was just a picture of a character sheet, like a blank one, and they're like, this is where you write this information.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like they work on the assumption that people that get a player's handbook have played before, and they need one that's like, hey, if you don't know anything about this game, because I know that all the CEOs of Wizards of the Coast are obviously listening to this episode, and
Yes.
and listening to my specific pleas, but like, I just think that if they want to sell more shit, that would be a good way of doing it. Instead of just having like D&D Beyond where they like generate a character for you, it would be cool to like really be able to have like an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, and this actually kind of dovetails into what I was going to talk about, was a bit about D&D Beyond, because as you know, I am a Luddite when it comes to such things, where I believe...
you hate D&D Beyond.
Well, I think that when it comes to our modern world, we do so much with technology that I feel like sitting down to play a role-playing game or a board game is just one area where we should not have technology involved, because it just helps you build your brain and your memory and your math skills, your visualization. There's so much that it helps out with, that it's okay to put away a device. I mean, I'll waffle a bit on if you got a player's handbook on a tablet, maybe. Even then, I'm not too much of a fan of. but like you just said, like D&D Beyond is this big tool set that people use and rely on to generate stuff, play remotely with people. And I think Roll20 is the same kind of idea. I don't know. Again, I don't have an account with that. I was trying to figure this out because I was trying to look it up because, again, I know Wizards of the Coast, they want to keep people on there because it's a subscription. So people are paying on there. And I was trying to find out, but I don't think it is. Like, so when you subscribe, there's like there's a couple different subscription levels. But I assume when you subscribe, you get access to it and some more tools, and then you get to like buy books on there, and then you're on your account. Cool. Yeah. That's what I understand. But it's like, so you still have to subscribe though to ever get access to your books? Or if I stop subscribing, would I still have access to the books I've purchased? I don't know.
I believe you can download them as a PDF once you buy them.
Sure. Which that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, like, so that's an area I know that they've been pushing in a lot to try to like get people to pay, because like I was talking about earlier, when you buy a book, you're done. You bought it, right? Like,
yeah.
No subscription to play D&D. You have your book. You just go, right? So, and that's not how many current models of the world work. Is they want subscriptions for everything because they want money every month. And my point was going to be that it's like, if I was going to use all these tools and everything, I could play a video game, right?
Yeah. You know what would be interesting, just off the top of my head, is if they did like a new thing every month that you could download, right? No, but like if they did like a new module or a new race or a new class or a new set of weapons or something like that, and then every like year or 6 months they also published it as a book, so you could have like the hard copy.
Yeah, I think there is. I think because there's something called the Unearthed Arcana, and I think it's like they do publish stuff on there before it goes to other sources if you're on D&D. So like I said, I think there is some kind of benefit there, but I don't know. This was just kind of, again, when I was reading like their FAQ, and I was like, what do you get when you sub on this, right? Because that's one of the things that happened. Because there was so much outrage, people were canceling their subscriptions as a form of protest, right?
Oh, I see.
It was one of the actions that a consumer can do to be like, we don't like what you're doing. I'm going to cancel my subscription here, right? So they did release a statement just recently, yesterday actually. I have it here in front of me, but basically they were talking about how it's just a bunch of like fluff words about, okay, got leaked out. We kind of, like I was saying, it was like they're not intending it to nullify what people have done. They want to continue working forward with people, But and again, there was just, like I said, some fluff marketing language in there, and you're like, okay, yeah, you screwed it up, like fix it up and etc. Right? I think, like I said, one of the main things, it just wasn't communicated well. This leak, because basically there was like an article written by someone on Gizmodo, and she kind of like took the wrong things from the new license and kind of it exploded from there, right, into internet outrage, like you said, right? So yeah, and again, people weren't focusing on the right part to be outraged, but I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to just kind of come in and talk a bit about my main thing was as well as that, like, I feel like yes, the player base of Dungeons and Dragons have grown, and role-playing games has grown, especially, again, like Pathfinder was wildly successful. It's, you know, it's like I said, number 1 or number 2 on the RPG charts for purchases, and that still, though, it's not as big as they think it is, right? Like, not everyone has to buy the books. Not everybody does buy the books. Not everybody buys even what they put out because, like, again, Wizards of the Coast, I haven't bought, I think I've bought like 3 or 4 of their adventures, and I haven't bought another one, and they've released some, but every time I look at what they're releasing, I'm like, meh, I don't really care, you know? And as you were joking earlier, I have enough experience in Dungeons and Dragons that it's like I can write my own adventure. It's not hard, and or it's like, you know, again,
I have no like next to no experience next to you, and I still write my own adventures.
Exactly, right. And even the DMG tells you how to do it, so it's like, you know, that's the point of the game. But yeah, so again, like I said,
I have to write my own adventures because there's no pre-written ones that make you choose about how many children you're going to murder.
They weren't murdered, Devin.
Oh, my mistake. You just had to let them die.
Yeah, big difference. Big difference. But yeah, like I said, there's so many other things, and I just like I that was something I just don't feel like people were talking about in that way, because this happened when TSR essentially went bust, right? There was just so much stuff and so many products and all this stuff, and then they tried to do some things and they just expanded to, and then they basically went under, and that's when Wizards of the Coast bought them. So like felt like that wasn't something that people were really kind of talking about, because like you said, if you're on the internet, it feels like everybody plays D&D, right?
Yeah, it really does.
And that may be the case, but not everybody buys stuff.
Yeah.
With D&D Beyond and other products like that are really kind of pushing these digital tools that I'm just like, you don't need that though, right? Like that, and I think that's something, like I said, with all these cancellations, that Wizards was like, oh, you know, we want to keep people on there because they're making X number of dollars a month from it. So
yeah, all you need for D&D is paper, pencil, and imagination.
Maybe some dice.
No, I'm just going to imagine that I rolled all 20s.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
I'm so good at this game.
This game ain't nothing. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I thought that was interesting with I didn't know that the OGL hadn't been updated in so long. I figured when the 5th edition came out, they made some changes, but turned out that wasn't the case. And like I was saying, like I like the 5th edition of D&D. Like I'd like to continue to play it and using other products to play with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just kind of interesting, and just some interesting kind of outrage that was going on against a company who is definitely doing, you know, they're making some weird decisions, like because Hasbro overall is down. It's not doing as well as they were hoping because toy sales are down overall. So it's like all those kind of products are not selling as well as they used to. So they're trying to like.
Do you think that has anything to do with Toys R Us closing in the United States?
I mean, I'm sure that didn't help, but I think it's overall like people aren't really buying action figures as much as people who do. It's now more for like collectors. It's not like kids playing with them anymore, right? At least that's my sense.
We have to bring back the 80s cartoon style commercials.
Well, I mean, they're on there. Like Netflix has Transformer shows and stuff like that, right? So. And He-Man.
Yeah, but like the TV shows that were just designed to sell toys to children.
Yeah, no, I think that actually there's probably even less rules than there was back then now. But now people won't watch them unless there's a story, right?
Yeah, there needs to be high drama
Exactly.
with your robots.
Hey, I've got emotional with those robots. It just seemed interesting to me that as someone who's played this a long time, and it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like not that it doesn't matter, but it's like, okay, if they change it and no one can do what they were doing previously, it's like, okay, well, you can still write your adventure, but then you just don't reference certain mechanics, or you talk about monsters, or you just use a more generic name. You could still do it, right? Like,
oh yeah, because they don't own the concept of monsters. They just own
yeah,
specific monsters.
own some specific ones. They don't own dragons. They don't own a fantasy setting. They don't own dwarves and elves, right? So,
They don't own dungeons or dragons.
exactly. Just those two
when
words in
they're together.
combination with an ampersand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I just found that was kind of an interesting thing. And unfortunately, we live in a corporatized world that it's like, yeah, it's a corporation doing shitty stuff to try to make more money. Surprising? No.
And that pretty much sums up life.
No, exactly. That's what I was mean. It's like, yeah, of course they're doing that. Like, yeah, not coming in here with some big hot take on it and everything. I enjoy D&D and want to keep playing it, but
Oh, you should do a hot take so that people can isolate that sound clip, put it on TikTok, and then people can like hate download us. So go ahead and say that you think this license is the best thing ever, and that you actually think that they didn't go far enough.
Well, like I said, the protest didn't go far enough on the one part about them potentially stealing your work.
No, they should totally be allowed to steal your work, and you should actually, everybody should pay them every time you say D&D.
Yeah, like happy birthday.
Yeah, they get
Song there.
$10 every time somebody even mentions dungeons and or dragons.
This is non-commercial stuff, right? Like, even though there are commercial ventures now involved, like I said, there's some new languaging there, but it's like, yeah, if we were going to make a movie, you would go to Wizards of the Coast and be like, we want to make a movie about D&D. What does it cost, right? Like, we want to use these elements. What's the licensing fee on that, right?
Do you think that the new D&D movie is going to be as good as the old one?
I mean, we've talked about this, by the sheer ability of movie makers now, it should be better just in every way because of better CG, better writing, better acting, better effects.
I don't know. The first D&D movie, that lady elf had like her boob armor that had her like boobs cut out of it.
I don't remember the boob armor now.
It was like steel or whatever, but it was like perfectly molded to the shape of her boobs.
Yeah, but that's standard in any female armor on a show or movie.
No, it looked so stupid.
Oh, fair enough. The only thing that's weird is I guess like, I don't know if they've gone, because like the title is, I think it's called like, what is it? Dungeons and Dragons, something with thieves, right? Like Honor Among Thieves or something along those lines.
Oh, do you think it's in the same universe? I hope so.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It was like, either do they want to make sure that it has the D&D on there so people are like, drum up those fans, or it could have been better if they just called it like Honor Among Thieves, right? It's just like, oh, it's a fantasy movie.
You know what would be great and like really weird if they did. How many different alignments are there? There's 9, right?
Yeah.
They made the same story 9 times, and you could go see it from either like lawful good or like chaotic neutral or lawful evil.
That sounds a lot like a Netflix like Bandersnatch kind of project.
What's Bandersnatch?
It was like a Black Mirror Choose Your Own Adventure kind of movie on Netflix.
No. I mean, they released 9 movies at the same time, and they all have the same story.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. It's like when you start the movie, it's like, what alignment is the character? And you're like, chaotic evil. And then it's the same movie, but they're chaotic evil. Yeah,
but I want them to release it in movie theaters.
Right.
So you have less than 9 screens. Your movie theater is fucked.
I think just because of the not goodwill with movie branding, they would not do that to not alienate theaters.
I think I'd like to to just alienate everybody today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, you know me, I haven't seen the trailer. I know that Chris Pine's in it, and that's about it. And the title. That's all I know.
You know that GIF I just sent you
Yeah, well,
of
like I
him
said,
skipping around?
yeah, he's skipping around. But I know nothing about the movie.
Yeah, me neither, actually. I haven't even watched the trailer for it.
Yeah, probably for the best.
In my heart, I know that it's not going to be as good as the one that came out in 99 or whatever.
I think it was 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
I went and saw that with my family on Christmas Eve.
Nice. I saw it in theater as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm a D&D nerd.
What?
Yeah. What? Shocking, I know.
I thought you were following this D&D licensing thing because you just really like the law.
Also, yes.
Just really interested in weird legalese.
Yeah, I don't know. Any more questions? Don't explain anything?
Oh yeah, I'll stop getting off topic. No, I think you did a really good job of explaining it. I'm a little bit, if I sound weird today, folks, I'm very tired.
And again, my intention wasn't to totally go through it. I was just more wanting to kind of approach it from like a different idea about like what their market is actually like for Dungeons and Dragons products. Because many people, are doing well, writing modules and writing adventures and whatever on like Patreon. Like you said, there's great podcasts and there's great shows and YouTube and people doing it. And that's all great. But when it comes to like people shelling out, like if Wizards of the Coast made the Critical Role podcast, then they would be getting that money. But they didn't because that's not their job. They're not that creative team doing that, right? Like they can sponsor it because they do. I think it's sponsored by D&D Beyond, right? Like, so,
good for them.
Yeah, like I said, so there's, they're working with these people eventually anyway, or in some way when they get big enough. So it's like, that would all still exist and it all still is out there and it's all still great. And everybody should just, enjoy some D&D.
Yeah, that's what, at the end of the day, go play D&D.
Yeah.
Thank you to every single person for listening to this. Unless you're a bad person, then grr. You can follow us on Instagram. I do not remember the password right now, but as soon as I remember it, I'll be posting again. Tome of Uselessness, that's our Instagram. You can check out our website, tomeofuselessness.com. If you have a question, concern, or potential topic for the future, you can email us at tomeofuselessness@gmail.com. We hope that you are doing well and that you are happy in your life. Goodbye.
Yeah, and Happy New Year and stay safe. Thanks for listening.
Oh yeah, it's 2023 now.
Yeah.